Hi, welcome to TrichoCare Education's Virtual Open Day. I'm Nick Plunkett, Managing Director. Today, you're going to hear a little bit about our qualifications in trichology, and you'll also meet our team. This is a team driven by passion. I hope we answer all the questions that you have about our courses, and I'd now like to hand you over to our education lead, Alison Asbury.
So Alison, we're just going to talk about the courses we offer at TrichoCare. Can you tell me about the introductory course?
Yeah, the introduction course is an online course. It's got 10 hours of CPD learning on it, and it's actually a really good way to see if trichology is for you. It's just a way of dipping your toe into trichology, seeing what it's all about, and understanding whether it's something you'd like to progress with. It's a really popular course for people who just want to do a little bit of CPD, or they want to see, I'm really interested in a career change, and I think it's a great way of people starting their learning.
And what about the skin, hair and scalp conditions course?
That's a new course we've set up this year, and it's just a more in-depth course for people. It has 20 hours of CPD, and it's an ideal course for somebody who wants to look at progressing. The great news about this course also is it actually is extracted directly out of the level 4 course. So somebody who did this course first would then be able to go straight into the level 4 and carry that learning with them, so they wouldn't have to do it again. It looks in depth at hair and scalp conditions. It looks at the hair and everything around the body, just giving people an understanding of what can happen. And it really helps people in all situations. I think anyone working in the care sector will be able to look at it and understand a little bit about what happens with the hair and scalp. After all, it's our crowning glory, so it's really important to us.
So there's also a course on COVID prevention, isn't there?
Yeah, there is indeed. So it's called the Infection Prevention course, and the idea of it is it's a 5-hour CPD course, and it gives you lots of knowledge about how to work safely in the salon or in whichever environment you're in, and it's a really important one to make sure you know how you're working. Obviously, we've all been through the pandemic for the last 2 years, so we have got a great idea on it. But we have to make sure that we understand these things. Also, if you're going to go on and do the level 4 certificate, it's what we call a prerequisite. The awarding body have put this course in place, and you have to pass that before you can progress onto the course. So we make sure that the learning platform is there, it's all online, it's really user-friendly. I have to say we've had 100% success, so that's exciting with this course. And people have really enjoyed it. Again, it's a good taster what education's about, what TrichoCare's about. The platform we use in the COVID course is the same course we use for all our courses. So it's exciting, people can have a go on it, see if they enjoy it.
And finally, can you tell me about the level 4 certificate in trichology?
Yeah, the level 4 course differs from our other courses because you can't just sign up online. You actually need to apply for this course. It's a very, very simple application process, but why we put it in place is to make sure it's the right learner for the right course. We want to make sure you enjoy your learning and you're able to exceed your expectations. So with the level 4, we take people on often who've done the introduction course as a taster and they've enjoyed it, they're ready to move on. You may want to join us at level 4 because you've got experience in other things. So you may have come from the caring profession, you may already have hairdressing qualifications, you may just have years of experience in the industry and feel you want to move career path. So the level 4 works out really well. So we do check before we put you onto the course, it's the right course for you. We have all the quality procedures in place, and again we're answerable to ITEC, which is our awarding body, about why we've put learners on and they are the right learner for the course. On the level 4, at the end of it, you will be able to apply to become a registered trichologist. Your whole career will change and you'll be able to move on into the future. Can you tell me, what is teaching and learning?
Teaching and learning are two parts of the same coin. Teaching is where information is imparted to the learner in a structured way. Learning is where that information is taken on board by the learner, is received and internalised in their own way.
Can you tell me about the learning process?
Yes, there are 5 learning processes. We've got research. So research is when the information is accessed and received by the learner. Next, from that research, they can create notes. So note-taking will be the next stage. That way, they can recreate the information in a way that's personal to them. From that, we progress to the next stage, which is assignment writing. So from their informal note-taking, they can create a more formal written assignment. Once that's done, then they're able to revise what they've learned. So revision would be the next stage. And that's when they would commit the information to their long-term memory. And then finally, everything that's been learned needs to be applied. So the final stage is application. And application is when they would commit that information to a practical scenario, in this case, a trichology-based consultation.
What are the common pitfalls that learners fall into?
Most of the common pitfalls are associated with creating formal written assignments. And so one of the pitfalls would be poor research protocols. And that's where they perhaps access the correct information but misinterpret it. So they need to extract the right information from what they're actually reading and researching. The next pitfall is creating loose, unstructured work. So although the information might be correct, the way that it actually reads is very unstructured and very disorganised, and actually isn't useful for them as a revision document later on. Then they tend to overthink and overcomplicate. What they aspire to, many learners, is to create almost like a literary masterpiece. They don't need to do that. They just need to write something that's fundamental, basic, and useful to them, and useful to the awarding organisation that will assess them. The next thing that I find is incomplete criteria coverage. So maybe they write something that's very good and very coherent, but often I find that it's incomplete. In other words, they haven't done everything that's been asked of them. So they need to adhere to the assignment guidance form, cover it completely, then they can get awarded a pass. And finally, the expectation of creating something that's perfect. Now, whilst we might aspire to something that's perfect, I don't think they should expect perfection, because inherent within human nature is we make mistakes. And anyway, the assessor is going to give guidance and feedback. They can act upon that and they can import that into their next assignment. So provided they cover the criteria to a basic level, that's enough. It doesn't need to be perfect.
Do you have any revision tips for learners?
Yes, I do. Again, it harks back to overcomplicating and overthinking things. There's a tendency for a learner to take one small part of a subject and then delve into it far too deeply. It's much better that you zoom back, get an overview of the subject. So you build a frame. You just learn the basics. Once you've learned the basics, then you can flesh that out later. So for example, if you were learning the circulatory system, there's only 3 things, first of all, that you need to identify. And that's the blood vessels, and the heart. Then everything else that you learn relates to one of those 3 things. And it becomes very, very simple then to work from that main frame to flesh out your learning.
So can you tell me, what's the most rewarding part of being a course director at TrichoCare Education?
That would be seeing individuals grow and develop, both on a personal level and also on an academic and professional level, is to see where they start, and then as they progress on their learner journey, the skills and the knowledge they acquire as they progress through those various stages of learning that we previously talked about. Ultimately, it's great when you see them practicing as trichologists in their chosen profession and being successful and carving out a new career.
We know that your tutors tell you that preparation is key. Can you tell me how you prepared for your practical consultations?
Yes, I went over all my previous consultations that I'd already submitted, especially the video consultations, and looked to see if there was any improvements I could make from that. I then went over all my feedback sheets to see if there was anything in the criteria that was missing from my previous consultations, and also just setting up my area really for the consultation, making sure that the camera was pointed and the assessors could see everything that I needed them to see, make sure all my health and safety procedures is in place and they were met on the consultation, and also my equipment. So if I was going to be using my trichoscope, that my equipment was set up already, it was already working, so I wasn't fumbling around whilst doing the final assessment.
So how did it feel having your assessors watching you on your final consultation?
It felt strange, but during the pandemic we all got used to talking to people through a computer, so so that was it was a good thing. But I just wanted to make sure that I was totally prepared for my final assessment.
As part of that final assessment, you did some oral questions. Tell me about those and how that went.
Yes, it went really well actually. I made sure that I almost memorised every part of the skull and the facial bones and everything else. So it wasn't as daunting at all as I thought it was going to be. It went quite quickly and yeah, it was quite easy actually.
And how do you feel now you've completed the course?
Absolutely elated. I couldn't be more proud of myself. You know, I'm an older student and I found it really difficult at first to study. For one thing, I had to kind of learn myself to study again, and it was just an amazing feeling to just actually finally get that qualification. Couldn't believe it.
And you're now going to feed back as a mentor?
Yes, I felt that it may have been something that I may have needed during my time with the course. So I'm happy to say that I'm going to be on the mentor programme for all those people that are going through the journey to be a trichologist.
Stephen, can you tell me why you chose to do the Level 4 Trichology course?
I'm a hairdresser of 15 years. I own and run a busy salon in Saffron Walden. I wanted to offer something new for my clients. I've always had a passion and an interest for hair loss, scalp problems, hair conditions. So I felt trichology was my next natural step. So I looked through many training providers on internet and so on and so forth. But TrichoCare came recommended to me. So I made an inquiry, I spoke with Susan, I spoke with Keith. They gave me a lot of really good information, which helped me make an informed and correct decision.
And how has your career changed since you qualified?
It's great. I work on the salon floor a few days a week, and I work in clinic with clients a few days a week. And it's fantastic. It gives me such a variation in my working life, and it opens so many more doors and opportunities to work with such different people, and it's really fabulous.
Can you outline your role as a student mentor when the learners get to Module 4?
Yeah, so my role as a student mentor is essentially to provide support and direction for the online learners. When I get given a new student, I'll make a phone call to them to introduce myself. I then add them to a WhatsApp group that I've developed for the students. This helps them to not become isolated, to not feel isolated, because I think from my previous experiences, sometimes you can feel isolated as a student. We do Zoom calls. This helps the students in their consultations, on their conditions, and it's a great way for me to help them bring all their knowledge together so they can develop their consultation skills for their reflective journals.
So how do you feel the mentor role is helping the learners?
I feel it's, as a previous learner, I understand the processes and also the difficulties that present themselves for the student. So I can use my experiences from when I did my qualification in helping them guide them through the rest of their qualification. I also feel that a student mentor is good because it gives the student an extra person to speak to talk to bounce ideas off and help guide them through.
And what would you say to somebody who was thinking of studying the Level 4 Trichology course?
I'd certainly highly recommend it. It is a very, very well-structured course, a fantastic support network. It is a great career path, and I think they should just go for it.
If you had to, in one word, sum up the business and the education team at TrichoCare, what would it be?
We are driven by passion, but underlying the passion, there are three principles of our business, the ABCs, the ambition, the belief and the commitment to everything that we do.
How do you focus all that passion on the principles of the business?
Well, Alison, we focus all our efforts in our School of Trichology. Trichology is a study of what can go wrong in the hair and scalp. And trichologists help people with the concerns about their hair and scalp understand what's happened, the diagnosis, why it's happened, and what forms of treatment are available to them.
So where can people with hair and scalp problems go?
Conventionally, you'd expect that people that are concerned about an aspect of their health would go and see a GP. But as we can imagine right now, in fact, probably for the foreseeable future, that places like GPs, those primary health care settings, where you'd normally go to seek advice on things like this, just aren't as available today as they once were. So these people need to find someone that they can trust. And that place is a trichologist. Trichologists that have the necessary qualifications in order to provide good quality advice on the physical and emotional conditions that they may be experiencing. Because really what people want is a diagnosis. They want to be able to understand what's going on. And it might not always be appropriate that a trichologist is the place to go, but it's certainly a really good place for people to start. And if there is something that a trichologist can't help with, then they are trained to make sure that they put them through this normal healthcare pathway and refer them on either to a community pharmacist or to their GP. And in that way, people can get that diagnosis that they deserve much earlier on. And they can also avoid that lengthy, costly process of uncertainty or expensive, complicated treatments, which is something that we're very passionate about in our business.
So we talk about these trichologists. Where do they train and how do they train?
That's why we've created the Level 4 certificate in trichology, which is an accredited course. It's regulated and it's internationally recognised, so that this very high quality qualification is available for people to study. And we've had so far biochemists, pharmacists, those working in the hair, beauty and barbering profession, all studying with us successfully. And it's really great to see them then take that experience and that knowledge and place it within a community environment where they see people every day and they can help.
So Nick, what makes people study with TrichoCare education?
I think it's the satisfaction of helping people in the community a lot of the time. There's lots of reasons why people take that extra step to do a qualification when they're already in business. So there are 300,000 people working in the hair profession alone that see these people on a daily basis. And if they can provide that knowledgeable information to the community at source, and that people have some confidence in the advice that they're being given, then that's satisfaction for that professional. And that's brilliant for the member of the community that's seeking that advice. So that motivation is why we do what we do, Alison, with TrichoCare and our educational courses. And that's what motivates us to continue to strive to create the best courses, the best learning resources and the best support that we possibly can for all our learners wherever they are in the world.
Could you take me back to the beginning, to the concept of where TrichoCare education started from?
We've been delivering a trichology qualification for 7 years, but TrichoCare education started before then. In fact, the Big Bang moment, that moment where it all started, was back in 2003 in a packed lecture auditorium at Cranfield University, where Brian Plunkett delivered his first keynote lecture to 300 hairdressers on the subject of science and what science meant in the hair, beauty and barbering sector. I mean, it's difficult to believe that people are applying chemicals to people's scalps every day. And this was the first time this knowledge-hungry audience had actually had the opportunity to learn about the science of what they do. So here we are, 20 years later, delivering high-quality educational qualifications in trichology to those with a thirst for knowledge. The learners with TrichoCare are the centre of our universe. They're the people that we're helping each day, so they can help others in their community. And that's something that gives us such immense pride. And that's what TrichoCare education does.
Becky, could you talk me through the assessment process for the Level 4 certificate?
Yes, the assessments that the learners have to cover are 4 assignments. So they'll cover controlling the risk, concepts of science, chemistry and the role of nutrition. And they are both pass, so they either pass it or refer it. They do get an opportunity to redo it if they do refer it until they achieve a pass. They also do 2 multiple choice exams, one for anatomy and one for chemistry, and they are both graded. So they're graded pass, merit or distinction.
So can you tell me about the grading criteria?
Yeah, so for anatomy, for example, it's a 50% pass rate, so quite a nice pass rate for that. And a pass is 50% to 74%. For a merit, they have to get between 75 and 89%, and then a distinction 90% and above. For the chemistry, slightly higher pass rate, 60%. So again, it's the same. It's pass 60% to 74, a merit is 75 to 89%, and then a distinction is 90% and above.
So I hear there's a prerequisite qualification. Could you tell me about that?
Yes, they have to do the prevention of COVID qualification, which is a level 2 award. And so the learners who do an ITEC qualification with any practical element all have to complete that level 2 qualification first. It's a very short course and it's only about 5 hours long to do the course, and then they have to sit a multiple choice invigilated exam as well to complete that, to gain that qualification.
So what does quality assurance mean to TrichoCare education?
So at TrichoCare, quality assurance is really high on the list of our priorities, and it just ensures that all the learners are on board with us experience like a fair and reliable assessment procedure. So it's quite a robust process to maintain the integrity of the level 4 qualification, and it's in line with our own company policies and procedures, but also part of the requirements of ITEC. So as an ITEC centre, we have to have an internal quality assurer, and then the external quality assurer is a nominated person from the actual awarding body. So it's a bit of a 3-way process really. The assessors looking at the learner, the IQAs looking at the assessment procedure, and the external quality assurers looking at the internal quality assurance procedure.
Can you outline for me what the IQA does? What does that stand for and what they do?
Yeah, so the IQA is the internal quality assurer, so every centre would have their own internal quality assurer. So what happens with that, we're just making sure, like I said earlier, the integrity of the course is maintained. So the idea of that is the assessors are qualified, so we do checks on the assessors' qualifications to make sure they're professionally competent in the area of work that they're assessing in, and also to make sure they're continually CPD, continual professional development. So outlining any extra work that they might need to take on, any learning, standardisation practices, moderation, sampling. Normally about 10% is what ITEC recommend, 10% of the learners across all of the units. So the process of that is taking assessed work, looking at that assessed work and making sure the assessor has actually marked it fairly, the work's authentic, it's validated, you know, and it's consistent across a broad range of learners. So it's maintaining all those records and documentation so that when the EQA comes to visit, the external quality assurer, that they can see that all the processes are all in place and it's robust enough for the qualification.
So can you tell me about the external quality? Do they visit? Will the learners meet them?
Yes, the external quality assurer always wants to see the learners. They like to see the practical elements of the course. So they will always be involved in, now we're doing our course fully online, they will join us on a Zoom session and observe mainly the IQA, watching the assessor, watching the learner. So yes, they will visit the centre and they'll also sample all of the IQA that's taken place to make sure it's robust enough and that we've sampled enough of the learner's work to meet the qualifications criteria.
So can you tell me what happens if a learner is unhappy with a decision?
Yeah, if the learner's unhappy with the decision, initially we would ask them to speak to the assessor, and just so the assessor can sit with them and identify their evidence and cross-reference it against the criteria. And normally with that, the learner would then be happy. Although they're disappointed they've referred, at least they've gone away and it's been a bit, clarified a little bit more to them. If after that they still don't agree, that's absolutely fine. We've got an appeals procedure and all the paperwork is online. They can access it, or they can ask the internal quality assurer for that paperwork. The first stage of the appeals procedure comes to the internal quality assurer, and they would then again check the evidence and the marking from the assessor and make a decision based on that evidence. Stage 2, they can move to that stage if they still don't agree with the outcome, and at that stage it goes to an appeals panel. So the appeals panel would consist of the head of education, the internal quality assurer. Again, all the paperwork would be looked at, and then a final decision would be made at that point. So then it might be that the assessor has been correct in their process and the learner then has to resubmit, or the learner's won the appeal and then they become a pass. And it's just a process, it's a support mechanism. Everybody's human, assessors can make errors, and it's all part of the quality assurance procedure. But we do have an appeals procedure in line with the requirements of ITEC.
And does the awarding body ever get involved?
The awarding body can get involved. So when we have the panel, on our panel we do say the head of education, but we could, if we wanted to, get the external quality assurer's advice as well. Normally, and I must say in TrichoCare we've never had an appeal go through, so it's fantastic that the processes that we've got in place really do counteract any need to do that, but there's always an appeals procedure there if it was needed to be followed.
Thank you very much for joining us for our virtual open day. If you have any questions, then email us, or you can always visit our website www.trichocare.co.uk, where there's lots of further information. We really look forward to welcoming you as a learner on our qualifications.